Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sedaru Live. Today we'll be having our June 23rd installment, Access and Control Your Wachs Valve Turning Machine with Sedaru's Fieldforce solution. For those of you that are just joining us now, we're going to wait another minute or two before we get started, and then we'll do some introductions, talk a little bit about the topic for today's webinar, and we'll hand it over to our demo extraordinaire, Kevin Koshko. We'll get started here in just a second. All right, looks like we have enough people in, so we can get started. Welcome again. Appreciate everyone coming out to our Sedaru Live webinar today. We're going to be talking about how you can utilize your Wachs valve turning machine using Sedaru's Fieldforce. We're going to talk a little bit about OMNI, our operational management network intelligence dashboard as well. My name is Dylan McFeetris. I'm a product marketing manager here at Sedaru. I've got about 13 years of utility experience and mostly on the software and customer service side. And I'm a relatively new employee here at Sedaru, so very excited about this and coming to you live here from our home offices around the country. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. He's going to introduce himself a little bit, and then we'll get into a little more of the topic today.
All right, thanks, Dylan. Hey, everyone, welcome. I'm Kevin Koshko. I'm head of products here at Sedaru. Excited to talk to you guys about today's webinar. It's a little near and dear to my heart. When I got started in this industry about 20 years ago, which is hard to believe, I actually got my start on a valve crew. So I worked for an engineering contractor, and we did valve exercising and a lot of that field work. So it's been fun to have that hands-on experience, and hopefully I can speak to some of these items with a little bit more context. Yeah, I got a lot of time on the streets and working on these valves myself. So excited to share how Sedaru can help those folks that are actually out there day to day doing this work. So
awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. All right. So today, guys, we're going to talk, like I said, about how Sedaru's Fieldforce and OMNI solutions can allow you to seamlessly integrate your Wachs valve turning machine. And what we're trying to do here is talk about how we're going to capture that data using from all your field valve exercising and how you can bring it into your Sedaru CMMS system. So we're going to show you a couple of different things today. What we're going to start off with is how Fieldforce, our field operations product, can be used on any device to actually control your Wachs machine. So replacing your controller, in this case, will allow you to capture the Wachs machine's information in real time and for you to view it on the Fieldforce application. Then we're going to go ahead and show you how that data flows into Sedaru and how we can use that to take a look at sort of historic work orders, the results of these tests, the results of the opening and closing exercises, and how you can leverage that in the OMNI application. So just for those of you who might be a little bit new to Zoom or these webinars, I want to just give you a quick overview. We're going to be doing a question and answer towards the end. We'd appreciate it if you guys would submit questions at any time during the presentation. We'll probably delay till closer to the end to answer those so we can make sure we get through the demonstration. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand or send us a message. If you're having any technical difficulties, often just refreshing the web browser will help there. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So looking forward to it. All right, here we go. So for those of you, again, who are familiar with Sedaru, our social media platforms are definitely the way to connect with us. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, whatever else you guys are out there for. We use our social media as a good way for us to allow people to see the historic webinars we've done. If you want to access recordings of previous webinars, you want information about our upcoming series, or just information about our products and roadmaps, what we're working on, new integrations we're building, all the good stuff. So please follow us out here. It's a really good way to connect with us, and we always enjoy connecting with you through those platforms. All right. For most of our webinars, we usually start off with a little bit of a talk about our drops utility automation. So this is a paradigm we use to discuss sort of the continuum of utilities moving from the paper-based workflows of the past towards the self-driving future. And what we do is we like to call out sort of the topic for today, what area we're working in, sort of what the goals are, and how this is helping you along that path. So when we talk about the Wachs valve machine integrations, we're really talking about the optimized and the predictive nature of this information, right? So those of you that are doing this valve turning right now manually, you know that's one, it's a time-consuming and physical activity, as Kevin can attest to. But also, you know, there's a lot of information and a lot of, I'll say, danger to your system in that valves that are old, you know, they get rusty, they get corroded, they can break, they can snap, they cannot fully open or close. And so the valve machine that Wachs produces does a really good job of capturing the data, of doing the work in a controlled manner, and sort of ensuring that you're not going to overturn or underturn your assets. These are all critical. So when you're using one of those devices, you're really trying to optimize your operations, capture data. And the nice thing about what comes back out of the system and what can be captured through Fieldforce and Omni is that it can be used in predictive in terms of helping you with your preventative maintenance plans, perhaps adjusting the recurrence pattern of valve exercising. If you're looking at sort of your operations and sort of how you might be worrying about your CIP programs, you can use the values you get through the test, the torque curves and other things that come back out of Wachs, and you can use that to help you with planning your probability of failure, right? So you can adjust your probabilities on these different valves based on the results coming back. So again, just a basic summary of what we're trying to accomplish. Kevin, anything I missed there about the value we can provide?
No, I think you know, once we walk through it, that's also going to help, because there's so much more we can do with it. You know, I think a big piece of it is, you know, when we talk about predictive and you know, taking the data that we're actually getting from the field, a big part of that is, so after we do the work, after we've exercised all these valves, and now we have a lot of more meaningful data. We have not only the status and, you know, current position and all those details, but actually the performance of that valve. How much torque did we apply to it? You know, what do those torque charts and curves look like? And then, you know, from there, what are we going to do to take action on that? Like, if you look at like a wastewater system, they're constantly maintaining their hot spots, right? They got these areas of high grease or areas that they need to be cleaning more frequently. But it's not common that we do the same thing with valves when we should, right? So here's an opportunity for us to inventory all those valves that are, you know, kind of struggling, high torque, that should be exercised more. And then we can put those on a more frequent work order pattern to make sure that we're taking care of those and getting better results from our system.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so I'm going to introduce basically the demo path we're going to go through here, and Kevin takes back over the screen. But just wanted to show a couple of screenshots here to give you a little bit of a taste of what he's going to be showing you. We're going to basically go through about 3 or 4 different kind of steps in this process. We're going to actually start you out in our Omni platform and taking a look at some preventative maintenance and valve exercising work orders. Then we're going to show you how Fieldforce will allow you to actually operate the Wachs machine and capture the data. And then we'll come back into Omni at the end and kind of sum up the value of that next step, as Kevin was just talking about. All right, with that, Kevin, go ahead and take over control.
Got it. All right, can you see my screen okay?
It looks, yeah, it's coming through great. Thanks.
Perfect. All right, so what we're looking at here is Sedaru OMNI. For those of you who use Sedaru, this should be a pretty familiar look and feel. This is the application that is typically used in the office, and that's where we have all of the different metrics, key performance indicators, and reports that we want to keep track of related to our system with every asset basically that we're maintaining. So if you look up top, we have our asset tiles. This is representing different asset types, whether it's valves. In this case, we have pipes, hydrants, valves, customers, pumps, and tanks, with different types of KPIs and metrics that we're keeping track of. As we know, the valve exercising is a really important part of our day-to-day maintenance, but it's not the only part. So by having a lot of different other inputs here, we can really look at the overall system health outside of just our silo of valve exercising, but in the context of, is valve work orders affecting other things? So we're able to actually understand if we're having a heavy valve exercising program in a neighborhood, we're seeing from our meter in our AMI system that we're seeing reverse flow events. Is that related to some of the exercising that's happening? Is it related to maybe some hydrant flushing nearby? So when we consolidate it all into a singular view, it really helps us to identify where our issues might be and make much better decisions much more quickly. All right, so with what we're looking at here, if I'm going to focus on the valves tile just for today's webinar, but we have a number of ways to set up and view all the work that we're doing as it relates to valve maintenance. So I have kind of an inventory of my open valve work orders. I can look at the number of closed valve work orders that we've done recently. And then we can also tie into other details here. So this is actually, if we wanted to include a SCADA integration, you can keep track of PRVs, as that applies to, some of the details that you're keeping track of. But then of course, all of our progress, the valve work that we've completed this month, this year. And then of course, as we're out there, as we're doing the work, we can understand an inventory, okay, well, which valves are inoperable? We have inaccessible, so maybe it's paved over, it's buried, or in a place where we're not able to actually put a valve key on it. And then we can also kind of categorize our inoperable valves by, maybe 12-inch and larger, so we can, prioritize those. And then of course, other things, just, from out there, if the packing leaks and we're, filling up the valve box as we're exercising, we can inventory those. And then of course, the valves that require a lot of torque to exercise. So by having all of this kind of in one view, it's really helpful for us to manage, maintain, and create our valve exercising programs. So if we take a look here, and I'm just going to jump into the open valve work orders. So if I click on that, that's going to take me to kind of that extent here. I'll be able to easily go in and then look at other details as well. But here's the 496 open valve work orders. If I click on this little icon, what it's going to do is zero in just on the valve work here. So everything kind of else disappears, and now I can see just the valve work order icons. And what's nice is if I wanted to, whether it's like assigning work or even reassigning work, I have the ability to do that geographically. So if I've already set up a valve program and maybe I have this assignment to, one or two people, I can actually go in and make an update to these specific valves. So I'll go ahead and select those. And now these 37 have been selected. And then in bulk, I can say, okay, well, Ramon and Kevin are sick, so I want to add, Matt and Jamie to the mix as well. So I can add those folks to the assignment, and then that will actually show up on their devices, and they'll be able to take care of these valve exercises just as if they were assigned originally. So there's a nice way to manage all the work, whether it's already created or you want to start creating it on the fly here. So another option would be, if we're just looking at geographic areas, a lot of our customers have different methodologies for how they're going to actually do their valve exercising. AWWA and certain Department of Health organizations and states will require exercising your valve every 2 to 3 years, just depending on where you're at. So with that, we've seen a lot of folks that are taking basically their map pages, right? You have quarter sections, and you'll assign like an entire, quarter section to get exercise. The nice thing about once you get into kind of a map-based environment, once you get into a digital and real-time system, it relies a lot less on the fact of, is it just by quarter section, by map page, because they're taking it out to the field. Now that they have the entire system at their fingertips, you can do a lot more with really focusing on just the valves that need it. Or if you have, if you're going to take care of, all the valves at once, it doesn't have to necessarily be against, a grid or a page. You can actually take, whatever kind of chunk that you'd like. And then, in this example here, I'd be able to say, okay, well, this neighborhood is like notoriously, challenging. So I remember back in the day, we had a project, we were doing some valve exercising for utility in California. And we were looking at the map, and it's showing all of these 6 and 8 inch valves. When we were getting to those valves, we were seeing like a crazy amount of turns. So like these were 6 inch valves, and they were getting like 45 to 50 turns. We were seeing 8 inch valves, and they were getting like 54, plus turns. And, typically what we'll see for a valve exercise is it's around like 3 times the size. So a 6 inch valve should give us around like 18 to 21 turns. So we're seeing like twice that. So it turns out that neighborhood, there was a bunch of old Pratt ball valves in there. So not our typical gate valve that we're used to, but they were really hard to turn, and they had a lot of turns with them. So, by us being able to kind of zero in and say, okay, well, we're going to exercise these more frequently. They're a different type of valve, It's much more difficult. If there's an emergency and a shutdown and we're trying to shut this thing off and we're saying, okay, it's a 6 valve, it's pretty hard to turn. Okay, we got to 21 turns, we're done, it's closed. But in reality, it's only halfway, right? So all of that documentation is critical. And for us to be able to maintain that and do it in a way that maybe gives it a little bit more cycles per year or for whatever time frame is really going to help us out when we need it. So, but just wanted to share that example here. And in the case of being able to make your assignments, it's really just, again, as simple as kind of dragging the area that you want to focus on. So if this was that neighborhood, I'd be able to kind of zero into that and, and pull up those assets specifically. And then once we have those assets pulled up, then you're able to go in, create the work order on those, and then you're in business. So, it definitely makes it nice and simple and, easy for us to deploy these work orders to wherever they need to go to. All right, so I'm going to jump in to our Fieldforce application. So Fieldforce runs on multiple different platforms. So we can run it on a handheld device here. For the Wachs integration, we do have kind of a specialized recommendation for that, where you would actually use a Windows, whether that's a Microsoft Surface. Toughbook makes a really great unit as well, but that would require the Windows hardware. Now, if you're using Sedaru already and you have iOS, you can still have both environments. You can always have a Windows piece of laptop or hardware along with a bunch of other iPads. So, but specific to Wachs, we do require that Windows hardware for that one. So I want to show you guys kind of what that looks like. As you folks have seen with the Fieldforce application, it's a more, I guess, straightforward interface than Omni. You still have your tiles, you still have your map, you still have your panel, but it's much more pared down to really the core things that a field crew is going to care about. Now, for the way that actually works is when I'm assigned a work order, and in this case, I have 4D valves. So I have a few repair items here, but then here's that neighborhood that we have assigned, right? And we had kind of switched the assignments to a few other folks. So I have access to this on my device, and I can basically select it from the map or select it from the list. But let's say we're just going to go ahead and start here. I can click on that. Of course, the first thing I see is that key information on it. So whether it's, can I get to it? Is it operable? What's the size? Currently open. So all of these metrics are pretty important for me to know what I'm dealing with. And, even to the point of, okay, it was last operated in 2010, which is quite a while ago. But, 6-inch with 18 turns was kind of the last thing that we did to it. So I can, from here, go ahead and hit the start button, and that's going to take me into my Wachs valve exercise form. So what I want to show you here is a video example, because obviously I'm not connected to a valve machine here in my house, but I can show you kind of what that looks like. So here's that example. This is a Panasonic Toughbook. And what we're doing is we're actually clicking that launch controller button. That's going to show our controller here on the actual device. I can go ahead and hit start, and then we can see in the background the Wachs machine starting to rotate. So what's nice about that is, obviously the ability to, safely kind of, find a good spot to set up and then operate the valve, directly from the unit. It's funny, so this is like this is a TM7. It's a truck-mounted valve exerciser. Key term being truck-mounted. So when I first got started in this industry, we on our valve crew, we had this. It was a handheld valve machine, and it still had a ton of torque. It was like a Romac kind of motorized hydraulic valve exerciser. So you would basically put the valve key in. You set this thing on top of it, and it had two big kind of bars and you almost do it like you're riding a motorcycle. And it was kind of the hazing. So like whenever a new field crew guy would start, like we would see how long it would take before he got thrown off of the valve. So it was, I mean, this thing had so much torque, you lean the wrong way and then it just spins you around and then you get tossed from it. So I don't recommend that wasn't OSHA compliant. But we definitely, took advantage of the safety challenges with that. Since then, it's so much better to be working off of a truck mounted machine. So always got a kick out of that. All right, so getting back to our valve machine here. So as I showed you guys in the video, we have our launch controller button. That's going to bring up our Wachs controller directly. And what's nice is, yeah, whether we're connecting via Bluetooth to the device or we can connect hardwire, you're going to have full access to the machine at that point. And then here it's just going to be reading all of the inputs that are coming in. So as soon as I hit start, obviously I'm not connected to a valve machine, so it's not going to take up any data. But you can see kind of how it works. And from there, once I'm done, I would hit save. All of the data that was collected here would show as received, and then I can go through and start filling out the rest of my form. Now, the nice thing is with setting up in Fieldforce, you can really define exactly what data you want to collect. So if you're doing a very comprehensive valve exercising program, you're going to want to take things, not just like the turns and the torque and be done with it. So this can give you additional opportunity to say, okay, can I even get on the valve? Is it accessible? Is it buried? Can I even find it? We can inventory, the valve use. So is it just a standard mainline valve, or does it serve a hydrant valve, or is it a fire service or domestic meter service? So all of that can be defined here. So as you're actually going through, you're exercising your valve, you're collecting GPS locations, all as part of kind of a comprehensive valve exercising program, and you're filling in your GIS with very meaningful, very ground verified attributes as you go through it.
And Kevin, I mean, this is, just to interrupt for a second, I mean, this is quite an improvement over kind of what the Wachs solution is on its own, right? They'd have to take the handheld back to the office and plug it in and download it all into the Vitals system, right? So this is really capturing that data in real time.
It is, it's saving a step, absolutely, but also the data that we're capturing here, it's all within the context of, every other asset that you have out there. And then, you're not only using this for valve exercising, you're using it for your big shutdowns or, different types of, events that you need to manage. And then, yeah, the additional attributes that you can store here. And then again, all real time connecting directly to your GIS. And then, getting that data back is, that's huge. So, all right. So, but just, as we walk through that, and then here's kind of some additional, parameters here, like valve condition. So this is a great way for us to define what our valve exercising program would look like, because now we can inventory, okay, all the valves that are working good, we can just do those on a 3-year cycle. All the ones that we're seeing, that are hard to turn, that can be more frequent. We can identify all the ones with packing leaks, so we can go in and potentially, repair those, or at least we know what we're dealing with. So all of that, would be available here. So, and then of course, as the valve machine, when I save that, if I was on a valve, this high torque value would update based on the maximum torque that was applied. And then the torque data actually stores the torque chart, which I'll show you guys in just a moment. And then of course, the ability to take photos, of course, the date, and then any sort of comments that we wanted to include, we could easily do that as well. So in addition to that, the nice thing is we can, this is a full, work order system. So we're able to capture, time, material, other equipment that we used. So I'm easily able to go in, fill in my name, how many hours I spent. So, I can pull that in here, go ahead and save that. And then if I have more than one person on the crew, easily add them, any sort of materials that we wanted to include as part of the work. And then of course, the vehicle, the truck that we used and how much we spent. So this is all kind of optional components, but definitely allows for more granularity and more data collected that we can use later on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. We can see that gray valve turned to green. Our 40 went down to 39, and now I can keep moving on to the next valve in the system. So, definitely a very straightforward experience as we're going through it.
Kevin, in this scenario, right, you assigned a number of technicians out to this. So those are going to update in real time from the other people's work as well, right?
Yep, that's a great question. Yeah, so a great point. Everyone who has this assignment, they're going to see it drop from 40 to 39 as well. So, we can kind of work collaboratively, and one person can take one side of the set of valves, the other person can start on the west side, and then we'll see those kind of converging together. So it really makes it a very efficient process for the team. All right. So with valves and all these work orders and all the data that we're collecting here, basically from the Omni perspective, that's where we're going to be able to see all the work that was done. So here's as we're keeping track of all of the work orders that were completed, here's the 5 valves that were done. So here's the one that we just recently were working on. So I can easily go through here and then just kind of keep inventory of all of the valve work orders as they're happening. So this is kind of real-time data collection, and then of course being able to see exactly what was done for each one. So I can kind of drill into that and look at the valve exercise 122. So the turns to close, the information that was collected on it, and then of course being able to get into the attachment where we would have our torque chart here. So so this is keeping track of and this is actually an upcoming feature that we'll be applying, where you'll be able to not only collect all the data within the system, but have the visualization to it as well, being able to see that using some advanced reports that Sedaru can provide. So for us being able to easily understand the performance of this valve and seeing where it hits those high torque periods, for us to easily understand the performance of that, and then kind of taking that to the next level, where okay, here is all the valves that have taken high torque in one way or another. So what I'm going to do with these is actually I'm going to create a work order, and I'm going to include some recurrence on this, where for these, since it's requiring over 300 foot-pounds of torque, I'm going to put this on a every 6-month schedule. So I can do that, and then make sure that it starts on the 1st of the month, and then maybe I can do my start my very first one in April 2020. Whenever we want to get started on that. Actually, that's in the past, but we can set that for every 6 months thereafter, and then go from there. So yeah, I'll start on July 1, and then we have an option to, if it actually gets past due, do you want to keep stacking work orders and creating more and more, or we can just say no, once it's reached its due date, it'll just create another work order without creating some duplicates. So, but by including work recurrence to it, now we're really efficiently taking care of these things that we're coming across. So, wanted to kind of share that in a nutshell. But as you can see, there's quite a bit that can be done with Sedaru Fieldforce and Wachs.
Wonderful. Hey, Kevin, we got a couple questions I have for you here.
Sure.
I'm going to fire away if that's all right. So the first question that came in is, how far away have you seen the Bluetooth connection work from the valve turner using the Toughbook or another product out there in the field?
I'm trying to remember. We measured it because it's, we wanted to see how far it would go. So what happens is, and there's a couple things with that. So one, how far does it go? And two, when you go too far, what happens, right? Is it going to just keep on turning and, blow up the valve? So no, so when we were testing it, we got, I want to say it was at least 50 feet. But it is going to depend on where you're at. So if you're under power lines, this is a Bluetooth signal, right? So you are kind of at the mercy of some of the environmental constraints. But we've seen around that 50 foot mark. Line of sight helps. But this is something that if your organization is okay with it, you could easily sit in the cab of the truck while the valve operator or the valve is turning.
Yeah, that's the critical point, right? Is the distance from the unsafe working conditions on the side of the road. So as long as you get on the side of the truck, you're in better shape.
Exactly. And then also when it does disconnect, it is going to stop the unit. It's not going to keep rotating. So there's the fail-safe in place for, once it exceeds that safe distance, the valve machine will stop and you can reconnect as appropriate.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
All right, we have another question that came in that asked, have we applied this technology inside the fence at a wastewater or water treatment plant?
That's a great question. So yeah, I mean, if there is a valve exerciser, if there's a Wachs unit, then that is out of the box. That's what we're displaying today. If within the plant there's just automated valve actuators, that might be a different manufacturer that has those. So we haven't done any sort of connection to those today. But if you're certainly using a Wachs machine within the treatment plant, those are, and we're talking about much larger valves, right? Typically butterfly valves and higher diameter. So it's definitely a great use case. But yeah, as long as you're using the machine, then it's fully supported.
Awesome. And I got one more for you, Kevin. These are rolling in well. So a question basically asking, the Wachs machines come with those controllers. Someone's saying if the controller is damaged, can I run the Wachs machine exclusively through Sedaru, basically?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, we've seen that in the past where, the controllers that come with it, it's typically like a recon, handheld unit that can just, run the machine. We've seen that the cords that connect to those can get damaged. We've seen that those can kind of go out. They're not cheap. So with Sedaru, you can absolutely use that. If you have a Toughbook or if you have a laptop and you're running Sedaru and connecting to the Wachs unit, you can definitely use that instead of the existing hardware, which is definitely going to save you some cash in the long run. If those devices go out, now you have another opportunity to control your unit and not have to purchase another exclusive or dedicated controller.
Wonderful. So just wanted to chime in and see if anyone else is any other questions out there. It looks like we're rolling towards the end of the demonstration. We'll give it a minute or two just to see if anyone else has a question before we wrap up.
Sure. So, and then Dylan, I know you have a background in utility space. So have you been able to see, some of the valve exercising work in the past?
Yeah, this is really a pretty fun topic for me. It's definitely something I've seen out in the field, and enjoy the fact that these things have gotten so much smarter. The data capture and that torque chart is just really cool to see. And the Wachs device seems like a really solid device. I did a little research, and they have everything from truck mounted. I didn't see a handheld mounted with the Harley chopper handlebars like you described, but they had a whole bunch of different devices, and I could just see the portability and sort of the other pieces that go with it, and how the data capture in Sedaru is significantly better than just the Wachs machine on its own.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right, I didn't see any other questions come in, so I just want to do a quick wrap up here, and we'll hop back over here. And just again, we want to thank everyone for coming and attending our Sedaru Live presentation for today on the Wachs valve machine integration with Sedaru. We're going to be doing another webinar, another 2 in July. And if you want to join us out here on social media, you can take a look at those next upcoming webinars and register. We'd love to have you attend. As always, please reach out with additional questions if there, something we didn't cover today with this integration, or even a future suggestion for a webinar. We'd love to hear it from you, and maybe we can work it into our schedule over the rest of the summer. So thank you again to everybody. Very much appreciate it. And we're going to wrap up the presentation right now.
Yeah, thank you, Dylan. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Hope it was educational. And yeah, we had a good time sharing this with you today. So thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.